Captain Taman stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the massive space station through the window. The Galactic Council headquarters looked like a small moon made of crystal and metal. Lights blinked across its surface like stars. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came and went constantly. Some looked like living creatures. Others were perfect geometric shapes. A few were just clouds of energy held together by fields Taman didn't fully understand. His ship, the Quiet Horizon, had been stationed here for 3 years. Every day was the same. Watch the council meetings. Record everything. Send reports back to Earth, never speak unless spoken to. And the council never spoke to them. Ji-won sat at her communication station, her eyes fixed on multiple screens. She was young for this assignment, only 28, but she had the best memory of anyone Taman had ever met. She remembered every insult, every dismissive comment, every time the council had ignored Earth's requests. She kept detailed records in what she called her archive. "Another session starting," Ji-won said quietly. Her fingers moved across her console, activating the recording systems. "The Thornback delegation is speaking first today." Taman nodded and settled into his chair. He'd heard thousands of these sessions. The council debated trade routes and mining rights. They discussed border disputes and technology exchanges. They made decisions that affected trillions of beings across 2 galaxies. Earth was allowed to watch but never participate. On the main screen, the council chamber appeared. It was enormous, with seats for representatives from 847 different species. The Thornbacks looked like walking pine trees with too many arms. Their speaker was addressing the assembly about some farming world in a distant system. "Humans are so strange," Ji-won said, translating the automatic feed. The Thornback just said that. He said humans achieved space travel without any special powers. No telepathy, no energy manipulation, just machines and mathematics. He called it primitive but somehow effective, like a clever animal using a stick. Taman felt the familiar anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry changed nothing. Earth had been discovered by the Council 200 years ago. For 2 centuries, humanity had been the galaxy's curiosity, the species that didn't fit the pattern. Most spacefaring civilizations developed psionic abilities or biological engineering or plasma control. Humans had none of these things. They just had stubborn determination and really good engineers. The Council had given Earth observer status. It sounded official and important. In reality, it meant Earth could watch the adults talk but couldn't join the conversation. Ambassador Hyunwoo had been stationed at Council headquarters for 15 years, sitting in a transparent observation box, suspended above the chamber floor. 15 years of watching, never speaking. Taman couldn't imagine the patience that required. "The Vrelians are requesting a vote," Ji-won reported. "They want to expand the restricted trade routes. Earth's shipping lanes will be reduced by another 12%. "Do they give a reason?" Taman asked, though he already knew the answer. Ji-won's voice was flat as she read the translation. "They say human navigation is unreliable. They cite 3 incidents from the past decade where human ships took longer routes than necessary. They call it evidence of inferior spatial reasoning." Taman pulled up the incident reports on his own screen. 2 of those 3 incidents had been human ships taking detours to avoid Council military exercises. The 3rd had been a human cargo vessel stopping to rescue survivors from a Vrelian transport that had suffered engine failure. The Council conveniently forgot that part. The vote was called. One by one, the species signaled their approval. The measure passed easily. Earth's voice, if they'd been allowed to have one, would have made no difference. They were outnumbered 847 to 1. "Add it to the archive," Taman said. Ji-won was already doing so. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, adding this latest restriction to the growing list. She had categories for everything. Trade restrictions, navigation bans, technology denials, scientific dismissals, and the worst category of all, public insults. That last file was the largest. It contained 2 centuries of the galaxy's most powerful species treating humanity like children. Sometimes the insults were subtle, buried in diplomatic language. Other times they were direct and cruel. The Dravian War Prime had once called humans pets pretending to be equals during a public military briefing. That one had made headlines across half the galaxy. Back on Earth, people lived their lives mostly unaware of these daily humiliations. They went to work, raised families, built cities, and dreamed of the stars. Some knew about the Council's attitude. Most didn't care. Earth had its own problems to worry about, but the people who worked in the diplomatic corps and the space fleet, they knew. They felt every insult personally. Fleet Admiral Sang-woo commanded Earth's military forces from a base on the moon. Taemin had served under him before taking command of the Quiet Horizon. Sang-woo was a patient man, but Taemin had seen the anger in his eyes during their last meeting. The Admiral had shown him classified reports about Council military exercises. Earth had requested to participate 7 times. 7 times they'd been rejected. The last rejection had included a statement from the Dravian War Prime. "We don't bring pets to war." Sang-woo's second officer, Commander Yoon-ji, had been more direct in her assessment. "They think we're weak because we don't have their powers. They think our technology is primitive because it's different from theirs. One day they'll learn. I just hope we survive long enough to teach them." Taemin watched the council session continue. A debate about mining rights in some asteroid field. A discussion about quarantine protocols for a new disease. A vote on expanding the science directorate. Every topic mattered to someone, but none of it involved Earth. His thoughts drifted to Dr. Dong Hyun, Earth's leading physicist. The man had developed revolutionary faster-than-light theories that could change space travel forever. He'd requested permission to present his findings to the Council's Science Directorate last year. The request had been denied. The official reason was that the Directorate's schedule was full. The unofficial reason, leaked by a sympathetic minor species, was that the Directorate didn't believe humans had the cognitive framework to contribute meaningfully to galactic science. Dong Hyun's assistant, Mireille, had been furious. She dug through records and found something interesting. Over the past 50 years, human research papers had occasionally appeared in Council scientific journals. But they were never credited to humans. The ideas were filed under other species' names. The Council was using human innovations while publicly claiming humans were too simple to innovate. When Mireille brought this to Ambassador Hyunwoo's attention, he'd filed formal complaints. All 17 complaints had been rejected without review. "Session is ending," Ji-won announced, pulling Taemin from his thoughts. "Standard adjournment. Next session in 48 hours. Taemin nodded and stood up, stretching his back. Another day of watching. Another day of recording. Another day of being invisible. "Captain," Ji-won said quietly. She was looking at a message on her secondary screen. "There's a private communication from Earth. Presidential seal. Eyes only." Taemin moved to her station and entered his authorization code. The message appeared. It was short. "Just 2 lines. Continue observations. Prepare for protocol dignity if ordered." Taemin read it twice. Protocol dignity wasn't something they discussed openly. It wasn't in any official manual. But every senior officer in Earth's space fleet knew what it meant. It was the plan for the day Earth stopped asking politely for respect and started demanding it. He looked out at the council station, glittering against the stars. 200 years of patience. 200 years of being dismissed and mocked and excluded. He wondered how much longer that patience would last. "Acknowledged," he told G1. "File it under secure protocols." She nodded and encrypted the message. Neither of them spoke about what it might mean. They didn't need to. They both knew that something was building. Pressure had been accumulating for decades, like a star-gathering mass before it ignited. Earth had remained quiet for 2 centuries. But silence, Taemin had learned, could only last so long before it became something else entirely. He returned to his chair and began preparing his daily report. Another routine day of observations. Another day of recording insults and restrictions. Another day of watching the galaxy treat his species like they didn't matter. But deep in his gut, Taemin felt something changing. The quiet was becoming heavier, more dangerous. Like the moment before a storm breaks, the insults had always been there, but lately they were getting worse. Ambassador Hyun-woo sat in his observation box high above the council floor and tried to keep his face neutral. Below him, the Vrelian delegate was speaking about trade efficiency. Every few sentences he mentioned humans as an example of what not to do. The human approach to cargo routing is inefficient at best, dangerous at worst, the Vrelian said. His species looked like walking mantises made of blue crystal. His voice echoed through the chamber. They waste fuel. They take unnecessary risks. They operate on instinct rather than calculation. Perhaps we should consider this when we allow them access to our trade routes. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Hyun-woo watched as several delegates nodded their approval. He wanted to stand up and shout. He wanted to point out that human ships had the best safety record in the galaxy, that human pilots had rescued more stranded vessels than any other species, that the inefficient routes often involved helping others, but he sat in silence. His box was soundproof when not activated by council permission. He could scream for hours and no one would hear him. He'd learned that in his first year here. He'd tried everything to make his voice heard. Nothing worked unless the council allowed it, and they never allowed it. The vote came quickly. New restrictions on human trade routes. 40% of the galaxy's major shipping lanes were now off limits to Earth vessels. The measure passed 723 to 89. The species that voted against it were all minor powers, the ones who'd benefited from human assistance in the past. Their voices were too few to matter. Hyun-woo sent an immediate complaint through official channels. It was his 18th formal protest this year. He already knew it would be filed away and forgotten. The council had a special office for handling human complaints. He'd learned through back channels that the office had one employee who worked part-time. Most human complaints never got past the automated sorting system. On Earth, the impact of these restrictions was immediate. Shipping companies had to reroute their vessels, adding weeks to delivery times. Costs went up. Some smaller companies went bankrupt. President Kite held emergency meetings with his advisors, trying to find diplomatic solutions. Every solution required council cooperation, and the council wasn't interested in cooperating. "We need to be patient," Kite told his cabinet. "We're building relationships with sympathetic species. Eventually, we'll have enough allies to vote down these restrictions." Fleet Admiral Sang-woo sat at the far end of the conference table and said nothing. His face was carefully blank, but his hands were clenched into fists. Commander Unji, sitting beside him, was less subtle. She glared at the star charts on the wall showing Earth's shrinking trade access. After the meeting, Sang-woo returned to his office and pulled up classified files. He'd been working on something for 5 years, ever since it became clear that diplomatic patience wasn't working. The project had many codenames and buried budget lines. Officially, it didn't exist. In reality, it represented humanity's insurance policy. Commander Unji joined him and closed the door. "The president still believes diplomacy will work," she said. "The president is a good man," Sang-woo replied. "He wants to believe in the goodness of others. But hope isn't a strategy. How much longer?" Unji asked. 6 months until the fleet is fully operational. Maybe less if we push the construction teams. 6 months until Earth had options beyond asking nicely for respect. Meanwhile, in a research facility outside Seoul, Dr. Dong-hyun was making a discovery that would change everything. His assistant Mireille had spent 3 months analyzing council scientific publications. What she found made Dong-hyun furious. "Look at this," Mireille said, pulling up a paper from the council's Journal of Advanced Physics. This article about gravitational field manipulation. It was published 8 years ago under a Thornback researcher's name. But look at the mathematics. Dong-hyun studied the equations. His eyes widened. "These are mine. I published a preliminary version of this theory in our Earth journals 10 years ago. It gets worse," Mireille said. She pulled up more papers. Dozens of them. Human research on fusion efficiency, human breakthroughs in medical technology, human innovations in shield design. All published under alien names. All credited to other species. "They've been stealing our work for decades," Dong-hyun said quietly. Mireille nodded. "I found 347 papers so far that contain human research credited to other species. There are probably more. They take our ideas, file them under their names, and then publicly claim we're too primitive to contribute to galactic science." Dong-hyun sat down heavily. For 30 years he'd believed that if humanity just kept working, kept innovating, kept contributing, eventually the council would recognize their worth. Now he understood the truth. The council had been recognizing human worth all along. They just didn't want to admit it. "We need to tell someone," Mireille said. "We need to tell everyone," Dong-hyun replied. He sent his findings to Ambassador Hyun-woo, to President Kite, and to Fleet Admiral Sang-woo. The response was immediate. Hyun-woo filed more formal complaints. Kite demanded an investigation. Sang-woo added the evidence to his classified files and continued building his fleet. The council's response was predictable. They denied everything. When presented with evidence of stolen research, they claimed it was parallel development. When human scientists pointed out identical mathematical formulations, the council said great minds think alike. When Mireille showed proof of timeline discrepancies, proving humans had published first, the council accused her of falsifying records. The Thornback delegate made a statement to the galactic press. The humans suffer from a delusion common to young species. They believe their simple ideas are revolutionary. They fail to understand that other civilizations discovered these concepts millennia ago. Any similarity between human research and council publications is mere coincidence or, more likely, human researchers unconsciously copying superior alien work they encountered during their observer duties. It was an elegant lie. It was also impossible to disprove without access to council records, and humans had no such access. Ji-Wan added every denial and counter-accusation to her archive. The file was becoming massive. She'd started organizing it differently, creating timelines and correlation charts. She was building something, though she wasn't sure what yet. A record, maybe. Evidence for some future reckoning. Captain Taman watched from the quiet horizon as tensions increased. More human complaints were filed. More were rejected. The council seemed annoyed by humanity's persistence. During one session, the Dravian War Prime made an offhand comment about the whining pets from Earth that got laughs from half the chamber. Timon recorded it. Ji-Wan archived it. And back on Earth, millions of people who'd never paid attention to galactic politics suddenly cared very much. The media picked up the story. Human news networks played recordings of council sessions, translating every insult into clear language. People saw Ambassador Hyunwoo sitting in his transparent cage, unable to defend his species. They saw alien delegates laughing about human primitive technology, while using human innovations credited to others. They saw their government filing complaint after complaint, all rejected without review. Public opinion shifted. The patient approach that President Kite had advocated for years suddenly had very few supporters. Protests erupted in major cities. People demanded action. They wanted Earth to stand up to the council, to demand respect instead of asking for it politely. Kite held a press conference. "We will continue to pursue diplomatic solutions," he said. "Violence is not the answer. Patience will prevail." But even as he spoke, he knew his position was becoming untenable. His own cabinet was divided. Half supported continued patience. Half wanted stronger action. And Fleet Admiral Sang-woo sat in his lunar office, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on warships the council didn't know existed. In her small office aboard the quiet horizon, Ji-Wan compiled her final report. She'd been maintaining the archive for 3 years. It now contained 247 documented insults, 156 trade restrictions, 89 denied technology transfers, 347 stolen research papers, and 18 rejected formal complaints. She organized it all into a comprehensive database with timestamps, video evidence, and cross-references. She didn't know why she'd been so thorough. Some instinct told her this information would matter someday, that someone would need proof of everything Earth had endured, that the galaxy would need to see exactly what 2 centuries of patience looked like when it was finally exhausted. Taemin found her working late one night. "You should rest," he said. "Almost done," Ji-Wan replied. "I'm adding the cross-references for the scientific theft. Dr. Dong-hyun sent more evidence. Did you know the Council's new shield technology that everyone's celebrating? It's based on human research from 15 years ago. A scientist named Nari developed it. She got no credit." Taemin looked at the massive database on Ji-Wan's screens. "Why do you do this? What's the point of recording everything if nothing changes?" Ji-Wan smiled slightly. "Because if something does change, we'll need evidence. We'll need proof that we tried the patient way, that we followed the rules, that we asked nicely for 200 years before we did anything else. You think something's going to change?" "I know it is," Ji-Wan said. "You can only push people so far before they push back. The Council has been pushing for 2 centuries. Eventually, we're going to push back. And when we do, everyone will ask why. This archive is the answer to that question." Taemin nodded slowly. He thought about the encrypted message he'd received. Protocol dignity. Prepare if ordered. The storm was coming. They could all feel it. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before the celebration. Ambassador Hyunwoo held the holographic message in his quarters and read it carefully. The Council was celebrating its 200th cycle. marking 12,000 years of galactic cooperation. Representatives from all 847 member species were invited to attend the grand ceremony. Even Earth, as an observer, received an invitation. Hyunwoo should have been honored. This was the biggest galactic event in decades. Instead, he felt uneasy. Something about the wording bothered him. The invitation didn't list him as Ambassador Hyunwoo of Earth. It listed him as the human observer, with a small note at the bottom requesting his presence for ceremonial purposes. He sent a query asking for clarification. The response was brief. His attendance was requested as part of the evening's entertainment program. Entertainment, not as a diplomatic guest. As entertainment, Hyunwoo contacted President Ki-tae. "They want me there as a joke," he said over the secure channel. "I think they're planning something." Ki-tae's face on the screen looked tired. He'd aged 10 years in the past 6 months dealing with the trade restrictions and public pressure. "Can you refuse the invitation?" "Technically, yes. But refusing would be seen as an insult. It could make things worse than attend," Ki-tae said after a long pause. "Document everything. If they humiliate you, we'll file complaints through every available channel." Hyunwoo wanted to laugh. More complaints. More documents that would be ignored. But he simply nodded and ended the call. The night of the celebration, Hyunwoo dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform. It was simple compared to the elaborate outfits worn by other species, but he wore it with pride. He took a transport to the main ceremony hall, a massive space that could hold thousands of beings. The hall was already full when he arrived. Every major species had sent their best delegates. The Vrelians sparkled in their crystal forms. The Thornbacks wore living flower arrangements. The Dravians displayed their military decorations. Hyunwoo found his assigned seat and stopped cold. It wasn't with the other ambassadors. It was in a small, transparent box near the stage. The same type of observation cage he'd sat in for 15 years, but positioned where everyone could see him clearly. He was on display. A Vrelian protocol officer approached. "Ambassador Hyunwoo, please take your position. The ceremony will begin shortly." "My position is with the other diplomatic representatives," Hyunwoo said calmly. "I'm afraid there was a seating error. This position has been prepared specifically for you. The High Chancellor requests your cooperation." Hyunwoo looked at the cage, then at the protocol officer. He could refuse. He could leave. But he thought about Ki-tae's words. Document everything. So he climbed into the cage and sat down, feeling hundreds of eyes watching him. The ceremony began with speeches from various council leaders. They talked about unity and cooperation. They celebrated the council's long history of peaceful collaboration. They praised the achievements of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Earth was not mentioned once. Then came the High Chancellor's toast. The ancient being floated to the center of the stage, his energy form pulsing with different colors. He raised a crystal containing ceremonial drink. The hall fell silent. "To all the species of the Council," the Chancellor began, "to those who have built this great alliance through wisdom, power, and understanding, to those who reach the stars through their natural gifts and superior minds." He paused and turned toward Hyunwoo's cage. A spotlight activated, illuminating the ambassador in his transparent prison. "And let us not forget our observers," the Chancellor continued. "The humans remind us that even the least among us can reach for the stars, even if they'll never truly grasp them. They show us that determination can sometimes overcome nature's limitations. Let us toast to the humans who climb so high despite having no wings, who shout so loud despite having no voice, who reach for greatness despite lacking the tools to achieve it. May they continue to entertain us with their efforts for another 200 years. The chamber erupted in laughter, not polite chuckles, but genuine amusement. 847 species unified in their mockery. They clinked their glasses and drank while Hyunwoo sat in his cage, visible to everyone, the living symbol of human inadequacy. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. 15 years. 15 years of sitting in silence. 15 years of watching his species be dismissed and mocked. 15 years of filing complaints that went nowhere. 15 years of patience and diplomacy and hope that eventually, somehow, humanity would earn respect through persistence. All of it meant nothing. They would never see humans as equals. They would never respect Earth through diplomatic channels. The Council had decided 200 years ago that humanity was inferior, and no amount of evidence would change their minds. He opened his eyes and looked at the laughing delegates. Then he reached into his jacket and activated his emergency beacon. It was a direct line to Earth that bypassed all council communications. It was meant for life-threatening emergencies only. Using it for anything else would be seen as a serious diplomatic violation. Hyunwoo didn't care anymore. The beacon connected. A voice answered immediately from Earth's emergency command center. Ambassador Hyunwoo, state your emergency. Dignity protocol, Hyunwoo said clearly. Activate. There was a pause. Confirm order. Dignity protocol activation. Confirmed. The silence ends tomorrow. The connection closed. Around him, the celebration continued. The delegates didn't know that everything had just changed. They were too busy laughing. On Earth, Hyunwoo's message reached President Ki-tae within seconds. The president sat in his office at midnight when the alert came through. He read the two words, Dignity Protocol, and felt his stomach drop. He'd hoped it would never come to this. He'd believed diplomatic patience would eventually work, but he'd also prepared for this moment. Every leader has to prepare for the moment when peace fails. Ki-tae activated the emergency command system. Within minutes, his entire cabinet was connected via secure channels. Fleet Admiral Sang-woo appeared on screen first, his expression calm but his eyes intense. The ambassador has activated Dignity Protocol, Ki-tae said without preamble. This is not a drill. We meet in person in 1 hour. Sang-woo begin Phase 1 preparations immediately. Already underway, Mr. President, Sang-woo replied. We've been ready for months. Ki-tae terminated the call and stood up. His hands were shaking slightly. For 2 centuries, Earth had remained quiet. For 2 centuries, they'd followed the rules and hoped for the best. Tomorrow, that would end. In his lunar office, Fleet Admiral Sang-woo pulled up the files he'd been building for 5 years. Operation Quiet Thunder. The name was appropriate. Thunder came after lightning, after the flash that made everyone look. Earth was about to make the galaxy look. He contacted Commander Yoonji. Wake the crews. Activate all vessels. We launch in 18 hours. Acknowledged, Admiral. The fleet stands ready. Sang-woo allowed himself a small smile. The Council thought humans were weak because they lacked special powers. They didn't understand that humans had something better. They had engineering. They had determination. And they'd had 200 years to prepare for this day. Captain Taemin received his orders aboard the Quiet Horizon. The message was simple. Begin Phase 1. Move to designated coordinates. Stand by for further instructions. Attached was a list of targets, every major council system within 3 days' travel. He called Ji-won to the bridge. It's happening, he said. Ji-won looked at the orders and nodded slowly. The archive? Send it to Earth Central Command. Full transmission. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence you've collected. They'll need it. While Ji-won transmitted the massive database, Taemin addressed his crew. For 3 years, we've watched the council. We've recorded their decisions. We've documented their insults. Tomorrow we stop watching. Tomorrow we act. Prepare the ship for combat operations. This is not a drill. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They'd trained for this. Every member of Earth's space fleet had trained for the day when patience ended. Dr. Dong-hyun received a call in the middle of the night. Activate Cascade, the voice said. It was Commander Yoonji. All systems? Dong-hyun asked. Everything. Show them what human science can really do. Dong-hyun hung up and looked at his assistant Mireille, who'd been sleeping on the lab couch. Wake up, we're activating Cascade. Mireille sat up quickly. They're really doing it? We're really showing them? We're really showing them. Project Cascade was Dong-hyun's true masterpiece. The faster-than-light theories he'd shared with the council were just the beginning. The real breakthrough was something he'd kept secret. Something that would change everything. Across Earth, similar scenes played out. Military commanders activated sleeping units. Scientists powered up secret projects. Diplomats prepared documents and speeches. Engineers ran final checks on systems the council didn't know existed. In his observation cage at the council celebration, Hyunwoo sat quietly while the party continued around him. The delegates had moved past their toast and were now socializing, networking, making deals. They'd already forgotten about the human in the cage. That was fine. They'd remember him soon enough. He thought about the message he'd sent. 3 words that ended 2 centuries of patience. He wondered if history would judge him as the ambassador who gave up too soon, or as the one who finally stood up when standing up mattered. Either way, The decision was made. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that silence wasn't weakness. Tomorrow, Earth would stop asking for respect and start demanding it. Tomorrow, the quiet would end. The next council session began like any other. Delegates filed into the chamber discussing routine matters. The Thornbacks wanted to debate agricultural policy. The Vrelians had concerns about mining quotas. Nobody expected anything unusual. Above them, Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in his observation cage as he had for 15 years. Then every screen in the chamber flickered. The main display went dark for a moment, then lit up again. But instead of showing the council's official broadcast, it showed something else. A face. A human face. Dr. Dong-hyun appeared on every screen simultaneously, not just in the council chamber but across council space. Every official display, every public monitor, every communication device linked to the council's network showed the same broadcast. It couldn't be stopped or overridden. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," Dong-hyun said calmly. "My name is Dr. Dong-hyun. I am a human scientist from Earth. For 200 years, my species has asked permission to speak. For 200 years, you have told us to remain silent. Today, we inform you that we will no longer ask for permission. Today, we speak." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted demands to cut the transmission. Technical staff worked frantically at their consoles. Nothing worked. The broadcast continued. "For the past 2 centuries, humanity has been patient," Dong-hyun continued. "We have endured insults. We have accepted restrictions. We have watched as you dismissed our achievements and mocked our efforts. We remained quiet because we believed patience would eventually earn respect. We were wrong." On the council floor, the High Chancellor tried to activate his communication override. It failed. Whatever humanity was using to broadcast this message was beyond anything the council had encountered. Their most advanced encryption, their most sophisticated security systems, all of it was useless. "You call us primitive," Dong-hyun said. "You say we lack the cognitive ability to contribute to galactic knowledge. Allow me to correct this misconception." The screen split. Dong-hyun's face remained on one side. The other side began showing documents, scientific papers, research files, all with timestamps and author names. "These are human innovations from the past 50 years, Dong-hyun explained. "Technologies you have been using while claiming we are too simple to create anything of value. The improved shield generators on your warships, human design. The agricultural enhancements that doubled crop yields on colony worlds, human genetics. The cure for the Vreen plague that saved millions, human medicine." Document after document appeared. Each one showed human research published years before similar papers appeared in council journals under alien names. The evidence was overwhelming and impossible to deny. "You have been stealing from us while calling us thieves. You have been using our innovations while calling us innovationless. You have built your recent progress on human foundations while publicly claiming we have nothing to offer." In the chamber, several delegates tried to leave. The doors were sealed. Not locked, just sealed by some external force field. They were trapped in their own council hall, forced to watch. "But this is not why we speak today," Dong-hyun continued. "Stolen credit is an insult, but it's not the final insult. What ended our patience was something simpler. You laughed. Last night at your celebration, you made Earth's ambassador into entertainment. You toasted to humanity's failures. You unified 847 species in mockery. That was a mistake." The broadcast shifted. Now it showed Admiral Sang-woo standing on a command bridge. Behind him through the windows, space was visible. And in that space, something was happening. "For 2 centuries, while you dismissed us, we were working," Sang-woo said. His voice was cold and calm. "We built. We innovated. We prepared. You thought our technology was primitive. You were looking at what we wanted you to see. Across council space, something impossible was happening. Human ships were appearing. Not arriving through normal space travel, simply appearing, decloaking from some form of stealth that shouldn't exist. They materialized in orbit around council worlds, near space stations alongside alien fleets, 500 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the council had seen from humanity before. They didn't fire. They didn't threaten. They just appeared, demonstrating that they'd been there all along, invisible and waiting. The council chamber descended into panic. Military delegates were receiving reports from their home systems. Human ships were everywhere, in over 200 systems simultaneously. The species that prided themselves on advanced sensors and detection systems hadn't seen them coming. These vessels represent a fraction of Earth's true capabilities, Sang-Woo continued. We've been building them in the shadow of Mars for 50 years. Your scanners never detected them because we developed technology specifically to counter your sensors. When you called our engineering primitive, we took that as a challenge. The screens showed footage of human fighters performing maneuvers that violated known physics. They moved through space in ways that shouldn't be possible, responding to pilot commands with impossible precision. You see, we lack what you call natural gifts, Sang-Woo explained. No telepathy, no energy manipulation, no biological advantages, so we built advantages. We engineered them. While you relied on powers you were born with, we created powers from nothing. That's what humans do. We overcome. Captain Taman watched from the quiet horizon as the demonstration continued. Around him, his crew worked smoothly, running the tactical displays that were being broadcast across the galaxy. They'd practiced this for months. Every movement was coordinated with hundreds of other human vessels. Jiwon was managing the data transmission, ensuring that every piece of evidence from her archive was being distributed through channels the Council couldn't block. 2 centuries of insults, 2 centuries of restrictions, 2 centuries of patience, all documented and now visible to everyone. The Council claims to value peace and cooperation. Dong-hyun's voice returned to the broadcast. Yet you have built your power structure on dismissing those you view as lesser. You take credit for others' work. You restrict trade to maintain dominance. You mock those who seek only to participate as equals. A new face appeared on the screens. A young woman in a lab coat. My name is Nari, she said. 15 years ago, I developed the shield technology that is now standard across Council military vessels. I received no credit. I was told my research was insufficient. Then I watched as a Thornback scientist published the same technology under his name 2 years later. He received medals. I received nothing. More scientists appeared on the broadcast, each one telling the same story. Human innovations taken without credit. Human breakthroughs dismissed and then stolen. The testimony was clear and specific with evidence that couldn't be disputed. Finally, President Kai-Tai appeared on the screens. He stood in the presidential office with the Earth flag behind him. His expression was serious but not angry. Disappointed, perhaps. Tired of being patient. The Galactic Council will vote tomorrow on full membership for Earth, Kite said. Not observer status. Full membership with all rights and privileges afforded to sovereign species. You will vote yes. The High Chancellor found his voice. You cannot dictate terms to the Council. We have laws and procedures. Kite's image looked directly at the camera. You have had 200 years to follow your own laws regarding fair treatment of member species. You chose not to. Now we are offering you a choice. Grant Earth the membership we have earned through patience and contribution, or demonstrate to the entire galaxy that the Council's power rests on fear rather than justice. You threaten us with your fleet? The Dravian War Prime shouted from the Council floor. We threaten no one, Kite replied. Our ships are defensive positions only. They have not powered weapons. They have not made aggressive moves. They are simply visible, making a statement you refused to hear when we asked politely. We are here. We are capable. We are your equals whether you admit it or not. Admiral Sang-Woo reappeared on the screens. The Council prides itself on military strength. You conduct exercises. You display power. You use that power to intimidate smaller species into compliance. We do not seek to join that approach, but we will not be intimidated by it either. The screens showed technical displays of human ship capabilities. Faster engines, stronger shields, more efficient weapons, every system more advanced than Council equipment. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. For 2 centuries, Earth has offered cooperation, Kite continued. We have shared our research even when you stole credit for it. We have participated in rescue operations even in systems where we were banned from trading. We have followed your rules, even when those rules were designed to keep us subservient. We have been patient allies waiting for recognition. He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. Today, we inform the Council that patience has limits. Tomorrow, you will vote on Earth's full membership. You will debate. Some of you will argue against it. Some will claim we are overstepping. Some will say we are too aggressive, too demanding, and we will sit silently while you debate, because that is what observers do. The image shifted to show Ambassador Hyunwoo still sitting in his cage above the Council floor. But when the vote is called, Kite said, you will remember the past 2 centuries. You will remember every insult you delivered, every restriction you imposed, every innovation you stole, and you will ask yourself whether you want humanity as partners, or whether you want to explain to your people why you rejected the species that has been helping you all along. The broadcast ended. Every screen in council space went dark for a moment, then returned to normal programming. But the silence that followed was deafening. The council chamber sat in stunned quiet. Slowly, delegates began talking. Some were angry, some were frightened, some were impressed despite themselves. The ones from smaller species, the ones who had endured similar treatment, were smiling. The High Chancellor called for order. This session is adjourned. We will reconvene tomorrow to discuss Earth's demands. Not demands, a voice said. Everyone looked up at the observation cage. Ambassador Hyunwoo was standing now, his voice amplified somehow despite the cage's soundproofing. Earth has made a request. We simply illustrated why that request deserves serious consideration. The Chancellor stared at him. How are you broadcasting? Hyunwoo smiled slightly. Human technology. You called it primitive. Perhaps you should reconsider that assessment. He sat back down and his voice cut off. But the point was made. Earth had control of council systems whenever they wanted it. They'd chosen to demonstrate power in the least aggressive way possible. But the demonstration was clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. That era was over. The council debated through the night. The chamber that had been united in laughter just 1 day ago was now divided and arguing. Some species demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others called for negotiations. Many simply sat in shocked silence, trying to understand how they'd missed the signs of human capability for so long. The Dravian War Prime was furious. This is a military threat. We should respond with force. Show these humans that power means nothing without the courage to use it. The Thornback delegate disagreed. Did you see their technology? Their ships? If we attack, we might lose badly. I say we negotiate. You would surrender to threats? The War Prime demanded. I would acknowledge reality, the Thornback replied. They've been invisible in our space for years. They can bypass our security systems. They have technology we don't understand. Fighting them would be foolish. But the real shift came from an unexpected source. The Velen ambassador stood to speak. The Velens were a small species, often ignored by the Council's major powers. They'd held observer status themselves until 50 years ago when they'd finally earned full membership through decades of patient service. I remember sitting where the human sits now, the Velen said quietly. I remember being dismissed and mocked. I remember watching my people's contributions be credited to others. I remember the day we were finally granted membership, and I remember thinking that we would use that power to prevent others from suffering as we had. The chamber grew quiet. The Velen rarely spoke in council sessions. Yesterday we laughed at Ambassador Hyunwoo. We made him entertainment. We toasted to his species' inadequacy. I laughed along with you, and I am ashamed. The humans have shown us proof of what they've contributed. They've demonstrated capabilities we dismissed as impossible. And more importantly, they've revealed how the Council truly operates. We take credit for others' work. We maintain power through exclusion. We mock those seeking only to participate. The Velen paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. I vote yes for Earth's full membership. They have earned it through their contributions and their patience. If we reject them now after what they've shown us, we prove that this council values pride over justice. One by one, other small species began speaking in support. The Kelrans, who'd been helped by human medical research, the Yulans, whose colony world had been saved by human engineers, the Forish, whose trade routes had been shared by human merchants when council vessels refused to help. Dozens of minor species that the council's powerful members rarely noticed. They all remembered human assistance. They all voted yes. The major powers were divided. The Thornbacks, pragmatic by nature, voted yes after calculating the risks of conflict. The Vrelians abstained, unwilling to support or oppose. The Dravians and their allies voted no, refusing to be intimidated by what they saw as a threat. When the count was finished, Earth had won by 12 votes. Just 12, but enough. The High Chancellor stood to make the announcement official. His energy form pulsed with colors that indicated discomfort and resignation. By vote of this council, Earth is granted full membership effective immediately. Ambassador Hyunwoo, you may descend to the floor and take your seat among the council representatives. Hyunwoo stood slowly. He'd imagined this moment for 15 years. In his imagination, it had always been triumphant. He would descend from his cage to applause and welcome. The reality was different. The chamber was silent. Some delegates wouldn't look at him. Others stared with open hostility. A few nodded respectfully, but he descended anyway. He walked to the seat designated for Earth, marked with the blue and green symbol of his home world. He sat down, not as an observer but as a full member of the Galactic Council. His first act was to propose new legislation. The Dignity Accords, he called them, rules to prevent any species from being excluded or mocked by the Council, requirements for fair attribution of research and technology, protections for smaller species against trade restrictions by major powers. It was everything humanity had wanted for 2 centuries, expanded to protect others as well. The proposal passed. Not by a large margin, but it passed. The galaxy was changing, pushed by a species that had remained quiet until silence became impossible. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. Not victory celebrations. Relief celebrations. For 2 centuries, humans had wondered if they would ever be seen as equals. Now they knew. The price had been high, the wait had been long, but they'd achieved their goal. President Kitai addressed his planet. We did not win through conquest. We won through patience that had limits. We showed the galaxy not our ability to destroy, but our refusal to accept disrespect any longer. Let this be remembered. Earth tried the peaceful way first. We tried for 200 years. Only when every other option failed did we demonstrate our strength. Fleet Admiral Sang-woo began recalling the human ships. They'd made their point. The Sol Defense Fleet would remain operational, visible now as a reminder. But the ships returned to their positions, standing down from alert status. Sang-woo felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He'd prepared for war for 5 years. He was grateful he didn't have to fight it. Commander Yoon-ji coordinated the fleet movements, bringing the vessels home. She'd been angry for so long, frustrated by the Council's dismissal of humanity. Now that anger had purpose. It had driven change. She could let it go. Dr. Dong-hyun and Mireille began the process of openly sharing human technology with the galaxy. No more secrets. No more hidden research. Earth would contribute freely now, with full credit and recognition. The response surprised them. Scientists from dozens of species reached out, wanting to collaborate. Many apologized for the stolen credit. Some asked to work together on new projects. They're not all bad, Mireille said, reading through the messages. Some of them never agreed with how we were treated. They just didn't have the power to change it. Now they do, Dong-hyun replied. The Council has new rules. Our situation forced them to create protections for everyone. That's something. Narai, the young scientist whose shield technology had been stolen, received a formal apology from the Thornback who'd claimed her work. It didn't undo the hurt, but it was a start. She was invited to present at the Council's next Science Directorate meeting. As herself. With full credit, Captain Taemin guided the Quiet Horizon back toward Earth. For 3 years, his ship had watched and recorded. Now its mission was complete. Ji-won sat at her station looking at her archive one final time before transmitting it to Earth's historical database. We did it, she said softly. Taemin nodded. We stopped being quiet. No, Ji-won corrected. We stopped being quiet without purpose. We were quiet while we learned, while we prepared, while we built the evidence and capability we needed. The silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Taemin considered that. She was right. Earth hadn't been passive for 2 centuries. They'd been patient and productive. When they finally spoke, they had the strength and evidence to make their words matter. In the months that followed, the galaxy adjusted to the new reality. Earth took its seat on various council committees. Human ships began trading freely along routes that had been restricted. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers. Not everyone was happy about it. The Dravians remained hostile. Some species never fully accepted humanity, but respect didn't require universal love. It just required recognition. Ambassador Hyunwoo remained at Council headquarters, working long hours to establish Earth's position. But now he worked from an office, not a cage. He filed proposals that were debated and voted on. He formed alliances with other species. He did the work of actual diplomacy. One day, a new observer species was granted status by the Council. The Yesh, a young civilization just beginning to explore beyond their home system. Hyunwoo watched as their representative was shown to the observation box. He saw the transparent cage, the position above the floor, the clear statement that they were allowed to watch but not participate. Hyunwoo stood and addressed the council. "I propose we eliminate the observation cage. New observer species should sit on the floor with us in designated seats. They should be part of the chamber, not suspended above it. They should be welcomed as future members, not displayed as curiosities." The proposal sparked debate. Some argued that observers needed to prove themselves first. Others worried about chamber protocols. But the smaller species, the ones who remembered their own struggles, voted yes. The proposal passed. The Yesh representative descended from the cage and took a seat on the floor. They looked at Hyunwoo with gratitude and relief. "We remember," Hyunwoo told them. "We remember what it's like, and we'll make sure you don't endure what we did." 50 years later, the galaxy had changed dramatically. The old hierarchies still existed but were weaker. New species joined regularly and were welcomed properly. The Council's science directorate had tripled in size as researchers from all species contributed freely. Trade flowed more openly. Military tensions decreased as smaller species gained protections against intimidation. An elderly Hyunwoo, now serving as the Council's Secretary General, gave a speech on the anniversary of Earth's admission. 200 years of silence taught humanity patience, but one day of action taught the galaxy that patience has limits. Earth remained quiet because we believed in the possibility of peaceful progress. When that possibility was exhausted, we acted decisively but proportionally. We demanded respect without seeking conquest. That balance defined our approach then and defines our approach now. He paused, looking out at the assembly of species. We teach our children that words matter, but we also teach them that some conversations require more than words. They require demonstration. Earth demonstrated not our ability to destroy, but our refusal to accept injustice any longer. May the galaxy never forget that lesson. May we never again mistake another species' patience for weakness or their silence for acceptance. The Council applauded. Even the Dravian delegate, humbled by decades of working alongside humans, joined in. That evening, Hyunwoo stood at the window of his office, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, the planet that had remained quiet for 2 centuries before finding its voice. The silence had ended. But what replaced it was better. Dialogue, collaboration, respect. The galaxy had learned that Earth's quiet strength was more dangerous than any loud threat. And in learning that lesson, everyone benefited. Hyunwoo smiled. They'd done more than win membership. They'd changed the galaxy's understanding of what strength meant. Not the power to dominate, but the patience to endure and the courage to act when endurance was no longer enough. Earth had remained quiet until the insults went too far. And when they finally spoke, the galaxy listened.